Skyrocketing student debt is the gift that keeps on giving. Not only is the crushing burden responsible for declining homeownership rates and vast underemployment, but studies indicate it's also the driving force behind Boomerang kids. According to a new report from the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, it's the primary reason millennials are returning home to live with their parents. And this gift proves it. The percentage of 25-year-olds living at home has considerably increased since 2002 throughout the 48 states. Nearly 40 million Americans carry an average of $29,000 in student loans, bringing America's total student debt to $1.2 trillion. Joining us now to discuss is the author of Job U and CEO of the Institute for Workplace Skills and Innovation, Nicholas Wyman. Hey, Nicholas.
Hey, how you going?
Very good. Thanks so much for being here. So what else did this study reveal?
Well, I think that, you touched on the $1.2 trillion in debt. That's up 84% since the recession. But I think there's, the study really looked at the contributing factors, housing costs, tougher job market. But the sharp rise in student debt is the one that's most closely associated with people living with their parents. So this is this Boomerang generation that you refer to, and it's kind of apt discussing that, me being Australian and all.
So what are some other contributing factors that lead to Boomerang kids, outside of maybe just student debt? Is there anything else?
Yeah, look, there's a lot of factors going on at the moment, and I think that we're seeing, for me, I see three real things going on here. It's very much about employability, affordability and marketability. And by employability, I'm talking about supply and demand and the 4-year degree just not packing the punch that it used to. Affordability, the average student debt has doubled, and the costs are just skyrocketing there. Andrew Rossi in a documentary recently suggested since the 70s that's grown by 1,000%. And then marketability is what are employers really looking for? And I think that gets to the crux of what this report's about, that these students are having to stay with their parents because they can't find employment because they've been trained for the wrong skills.
Outside of employability, what about stagnant wages? We haven't seen minimum wage increases in this country for quite some time. Do you think that has anything to do with Boomerang kids?
I think that's a contributing factor, but there's a lot of pressure on business. There's with the jobs report out today, it's a strong jobs report. There's no question about that. But I think that the pressure is still on employers because they don't just face competition within the United States. They've got competition from overseas. We're going through this globalization and also technological change. So I think a lot of employers can't afford to, so it's this double-edged sword for them. But I don't think that's really the only driving issue at all. I think it's really this skills gap or this labour market mismatch, which is people are leaving our education systems without the skills that employers need. And I think that when people can't secure employment, their options are limited and they're having to resort to poorly paid jobs and consider, well, what am I going to do to solve this problem? And, what can I do? So there's some practical thoughts for people.
Chalking it up to too many liberal arts degrees, huh, Nicholas?
Well, I really think that it's important for, if somebody was out there right now and saying, well, what are my options? Well, it really depends whether you, are at home because you're considering taking on, which career path you want to head into, or you may be there with your college degree. But either way, I'd suggest that people should look at this idea of what I call JWT, jobs with training. So that's the ability to earn and learn. And I think that heads off into things such as apprenticeships and vocational education. But I think that people need to realise that is a force onto a career progression ladder. So it doesn't close the door to further education. I think that's really important, and people become really concerned about these issues, and you really need to get out there and get in circulation.
Let's talk about that jobs report that you released. It showed that 250,000 jobs were added in January. Does this mean that things are looking up?
Absolutely. Look, I think this is great for the economy, and I think it's great. It's good news, but I probably wouldn't be popping the cork just about yet, because what these reports don't show is they don't show the huge levels of underemployment. And I think there's a lot of people who'd like to be working more. And I think there's a lot of people who might be working in jobs and careers that don't necessarily suit their skill set or what they want to be doing. So there's a huge opportunity to constantly look at upskilling and rebooting your skills. So no matter where you are in your career, so whether you're a high school graduate or whether you've graduated college or whether you're actually currently employed, I think you've got to constantly be looking to reboot and refresh your skills. And so I think this skills gap is still going to play. But so I think since 2014, it's about 3.1 million jobs added. And that's great news for the US economy, but it's certainly not a time to sit back and celebrate. I think it's a time to really say, well, what can we do to remain competitive in a rapidly changing global market?
Is the way that we can remain competitive in a rapidly changing global market by refreshing our skills as much as possible? Is that the advice that you would give to parents and kids, to never remain comfortable in one job, but constantly be looking and thinking about what you could do to better yourself in that career as well as maybe another career that you'd like to pursue?
Look, absolutely. I think it's really important to always develop almost in parallel the skills you need to do the job, but always develop your own personal set of skills. And if we look to some countries like, for instance, Switzerland, up until retirement, people are constantly taking on new skills and training and learning. And there is a bit of a culture in society which is, well, I've got my degree or I've got my job, I'm going to stop taking on education and training. And my message, as you've quite rightly put, is that you need to constantly reboot, refresh your skills all the time to remain employable.